Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /PettyRevenge, where people get little wins on those who've wronged them. And in today's hilarious episode, people are getting back at nasty Karen customers, horrible neighbors, nightmare business owners, and one OP tells the story about the time they ended a man's career, all because the guy wasn't playing nice at work. I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. This took place many years ago when a certain virus was affecting everyone globally. I used to run a small business, Wedding Space, and I was very successful in a very short period of time, to the point that I was getting all expense-paid invites to industry conferences less than 6 months after I opened. Needless to say, this ruffled feathers. Enter someone named Kate. Now, Kate is a chief Karen who competes in the same space, and she's been nothing but awful to me from the moment she became aware that I wasn't just competition, but that I was doing better business than her. She would complain that I had gotten expenses paid, and implied it was because I was pretty. She even said to me once that she felt people who had been in the space longer deserved it more, and then made a vaguely racist statement how my outfit colors don't look good on dark-skinned people. She also reported my booth for accidentally being less than 3 inches outside of our 10x10 slot, and she's tried on more than one occasion to have my competing products removed from vendor halls. Needless to say, I despise this woman. Now, fast forward a bit into the pandemic. I see major issues on the horizon for my business, and so I decide to step out and sell for a pretty penny. I bought a condo and took a job at a nonprofit and moved along with my life. But some of my friends, still in the industry, would give me updates or vent, and I was absolutely right to sell. Most everyone doing what I was doing had already closed, including the person I sold to. Kate, however, was still going strong, though I noticed her prices were really aggressive. My friend then showed me a message that Kate had bragged privately about, claiming to be unemployed/disabled by using her longtime partner as a cover for her business, then dropping prices below what other sellers could do because she was double dipping. Now this really made me angry. I have a mobility disability, and I felt horrible for the people she was running out of business by pricing so low. So of course I reported her, but nothing seemed to come of that. My friend runs the vending hall, so I asked her to place me right next to Kate. Now, when I left the industry, I still had great contacts on the manufacturing side because I speak Chinese fairly well. I found the manufacturer for Kate's top-selling items, and I ordered a sizable inventory to take with me to the conference. I priced them at cost and made ginormous signs about inventory liquidation, and then created these super aggressive bundle deals that made it nearly impossible for her to do any business being right next to me. I could see her over there fuming, and she did try to come over and complain, but our booth was too busy to even entertain her obnoxious huffing and puffing. She closed her shop permanently after that. Now, I did lose $5,000 doing this, but I got a lot of people deals on packages and items that they never thought they could afford for their special day. And it was honestly fun to help people out, especially at her expense. You know what? It never ceases to amaze me the amount of effort and level people will go to get back at somebody. Like, not a lot of people would willingly spend $5,000 just to spite a nasty competitor, right? And OP's pettiness deserves awards, people. And to know that Karen's business was shut down after was the cherry on top of that. I only wish I could see her face when OP was there undercutting her business without a care in the world, probably with a huge smile on her face. Brilliant. Okay, so several years ago, I worked the late shift as an online customer support agent for a women's clothing company. The other employees and I were constantly mistreated by crappy customers, and our managers did absolutely nothing to support us. The company valued its customers so much that the rules for dealing with them were disgustingly lax. For example, this one guy would call in, obviously touching himself to the sound of our voices, but we weren't allowed to hang up on him because he never actually said he was. We had a 3-strike policy where a customer could say pretty much anything they wanted 3 times before they were disconnected and banned. But we also had a 1-day turnover policy where if a customer was cut off for that behavior, the ban was reset the next day. So somebody could call in, tell you that you're a bitch 3 times, get kicked off, and then come and do it again the next day. The entire time I worked there, I never saw a single person get permanently banned. Not even the guy who would call in and touch himself. I eventually ended up quitting because a customer harassed me to the point of me crying, and my manager's response was that I could have an extra 5 minutes added to my break. That said, one of our worst customers was this woman who we'll call Kathy because Karen's overused. This woman would enter our customer support chats around midnight, and she was drunk. She would then ask questions like, "What jeans do you think would go with this top?" When the CSA answered, Kathy would say things like, "Wow, this is taking so long. Imagine working a minimum wage job at midnight. That would make me want to jump off a bridge. How do you not do that?" And that was warning number 1. The next time, it would get a little worse. She would say something like, "Wow, you're such a loser. Have you ever thought about dying? I would if I was you." That was warning number 2. The last time each night, it would be something like, "I hope you die. You're so sad. You should blah blah blah." At that point, we'd let her know that we could no longer help her, and we would disconnect her. And then, she would pop back in chat within a few days, and the whole thing would start over. And she would always say the same kinds of mean things. The woman clearly knew she could say 3 separate terrible things to us and have nothing happen to her. And the thing is, our managers never helped or stepped in. So I once looked this woman up because I wanted to know who she was. And to my surprise, I found out that she was a therapist. This woman had her own practice, and I was baffled. What she did was a horrible, cruel, unkind thing, and I couldn't believe a therapist would do this. I later quit working at the company. I waited a few weeks and then made a phone call to Kathy's practice. I spoke to Kathy and I told her I was seeking therapy. During our intake call, she asked me what kind of issues I was facing. And that's when I told her, "Well, I like to do this really weird, psychotic thing a few nights a week. I like to get really drunk, and I like to chat with minimum wage customer support agents, and I like to tell them multiple times that they should go end their miserable lives. That's so effing crazy, right?" Hearing me say that, she made a tiny noise. A moment passed and the call disconnected. My friends at the company said that she never messaged them again. Holy moly, what a freaking psycho that woman was, guys. And to know that she owns her own practice, supposedly helping people, and that she has that kind of secret personality where she loves to put others down is actually freaking insane, guys, for the lack of a better word. Like, imagine all the confidential things that people tell her on a daily basis that she probably doesn't even keep confidential, and that she probably brings up during social gatherings and laughs about. Oh, the frickin' horror. In my opinion, I think OP should have posted that all over Google reviews, Yelp, you name it. Expose that nasty woman, because her patients need to know what kind of person she really is. Like, just knowing that she was a therapist and how she loved to torment people working in customer service like that makes me sick, guys. So this happened several years ago, a few months after I moved to Chicago. I had moved there from Romania, where I'd been living and going to school. Anyways, while there, due to my living situation, I had to learn the language fast and thoroughly. Not many people around me spoke English outside of the university I was at. So fast forward a few months after I arrived to Chicago. Imagine my surprise when the driver of the Uber I ordered appeared to have a Romanian name. The area did have a lot of Eastern Europeans, so I guess it shouldn't have been so surprising. And here's the thing, I was really excited to talk to him and make sure I wasn't getting rusty, maybe make a friend in the process. So the guy pulls up, I get in, and he greets me, but he appears to be on the phone with a buddy or family member, so I just sit quietly in the back, listening in a bit. The person on the other end asked if the driver's getting off work soon. He then responds with something like the following. The guy says, "No, I still have a few hours left, and then I'll go home. Right now, I have someone in the car, and God, I hate this country. The women here are so fat and ugly. At least this one has a nice chest, but why can't she lose some weight?" The guy then goes on and on about all the problems with me and the other American women. Now, I've always been a bit on the chonky side, and you best believe the Romanians love to comment on it, so I was used to it. But I was a bit shocked that this guy was going off like that. Anyways, I'm just kind of sitting bemused in the back seat as we near my destination. And that's when I tell him in Romanian with all my might, trying to pull off the distinct accent of the region I'd been living in, "Can you just pull over right there on the right?" And I swear, the moment the guy heard that, his head did the Exorcist girl head move, and he turns the shade of red that I've never seen anywhere else. The guy didn't say anything, he just pulled over. When I got out, I said thanks, and I continued speaking in Romanian, and I added, "You're not attractive at all, and you're also fat, so maybe you shouldn't make comments like that." I have never again reached such levels of self-pride. I love this level of revenge, guys. Like, people should not assume they're safe to talk crap just because it's not in English. Like, you never know what languages someone can speak, and you might be in for quite the shock like this guy was. Especially nowadays, right? With apps, videos, whatever, making it so easy to learn other languages. And this person shares their similar experience. This person comments, "I worked part-time as a grocery store cashier when I was in university. One day, this couple came through my till, said hello, and then spent the whole time commenting on how lazy the kids in this country were. How they don't bother to educate themselves, have no ambitions, just content to do menial work." All of this in Romanian, thinking I wouldn't understand. Meanwhile, I'm running through the motions of scanning through their order with the same hollow retail worker smile that I'd worked hard to perfect. Now, my folks had been born in Romania. They emigrated to North America before having kids, and they were damn proud to make sure their children could speak the language. So my siblings and I were raised speaking Romanian at home. Now imagine their shock as I hand them the receipt and wish them a nice day in their language. Both of them looked like they'd seen ghosts, and I don't think I've seen anyone hightail it out of there as fast as they did that day. This happened decades ago. I was picked on relentlessly by my dad's wife growing up. My mom fought long and hard to gain custody, but my dad was a good Christian with more money, so things ended up the way they did. Given our location, my mom stood no chance. She finally got custody when I was old enough to where my opinion mattered. I switched from a fancy, extremely competitive, snobby private school to the local public school by choice. I dyed my hair green and put a pride sticker on my car, and teachers did not know what to think of me. I had green hair, and my bumper sticker was definitely the most controversial topic in the entire school. But I was quiet, came from a fancy school, paid attention in class, and I was earning straight A's. Thankfully, although most of my peers shunned me, my teachers realized pretty quickly that I was a decent enough kid. That said, I had this problem where I got migraines. I finally got a prescription for them, non-narcotic. And I took it straight to the nurse's office because the district had a zero-tolerance policy, and being in possession of even Tylenol would get you expelled for drug possession. So I bring my medication to the nurse, and the nurse says to me, "You're gonna have to get a doctor's signature on this form." I ask her, why? It's a legitimate prescription with my name on it on the original bottle. The nurse then condescendingly says, "We're required to have a doctor's signature before we can dispense medications." And that's when I reply, "How do you think I got the prescription in the first place?" The nurse then decided to impress upon me the fact that I was powerless here, and there was absolutely nothing I could do except comply. So I left the office stressed because I didn't have access to my migraine medication. And of course, I end up stressing myself into developing a migraine. Now, call me a Karen, but I felt entitled to go to the nurse's office and be dispensed my medication, so I politely requested it to be given to me. The nurse obviously told me no, so I asked for the principal. I got the assistant principal, who simply reiterated the district policy. And then it occurred to me that I was within my power to get my medicine, because I had a secret weapon, so I had to be sneaky. I then said to her I'd like to call one of my parents. Now, this phone call wasn't intended for my dad, who's a financial consultant. It wasn't to my mom, who worked in sales and advertising. And of course, I wasn't calling my stepmonster. But my stepdad, on the other hand, just happened to be our region's most famous radio talk show host at the time, and he was on the air for another 2 hours. The assistant principal brought me the phone book, as those existed back then, and I looked up the radio station's number in the yellow pages without the assistant principal figuring out which business I was calling. I called the radio station and I got the front desk. And of course, lots of people call them, ask for him, and they get absolutely nowhere. But I knew that they would interrupt his show and take the call if I told them that I was his daughter, Royal. In all my life, I've never had a situation that warranted me calling him at work. I was hoping he would take the call while on air, but he didn't want to air what was likely private business, so he put the commercials on while I explained the situation. And then I suppressed a grin while handing the phone to the assistant principal to talk to my stepdad, Bill. I managed a poker face. The assistant principal didn't realize he was talking to Bill Jones when he dismissed my concerns, and even suggested that I be denied my medication simply due to my pants, which I'd been wearing half the year without a problem, but apparently were a uniform violation that day. The assistant principal basically explained that's just how it is, and tough luck, and didn't realize the crap he'd stepped into. He then hung up, dismissed me, and walked off looking pretty self-satisfied at winning his little power trip. I went to class feeling victorious. I hadn't won yet, but I'd played my cards, and I knew how it would turn out. My stepdad gets back on air and immediately changed the topic of discussion to the ridiculousness of the district's medication policy, and the phone lines lit up. It turns out a lot of people wanted to air their complaints. I was sitting in class, the migraine kicking in, but I was feeling satisfied that their lack of respect for me and all other more powerless students was hitting the fan. I timed it. 45 minutes after I was arrogantly denied my legally prescribed medication I needed, the assistant principal comes into the classroom I was in. He knelt down beside my desk and he whispered, "Hey, you want to come take your medication?" Yeah, the post ends right there, but all I can say is good frickin' job, OP. And with reading so many posts relating to schools and teachers, I've learned that the most incompetent, power-hungry a-holes work with kids, so the victims can't fight back. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous what the nurse was pulling. Like, lady, isn't the prescription enough? Because I'm pretty sure on prescriptions, the doctors write how much is needed to take, right? And with OP's name on it, how is that not enough proof that they need the medication? Like, that nurse has probably never had a migraine in her life, and they're definitely not fun when you can't take your medication in time to avoid it getting worse. So, to preface, all you need to know is that I'm something of a nepo baby, but it is what it is. My mom is incredibly successful in a very specific, but very lucrative field of business. This allowed my dad to be a stay-at-home dad, and for me and my siblings to get a good education. We are very well off due to my mom. When I graduated from college, I decided to go in the same field as my mom. Now, while I love my mom and our relationship's good, I very much did not want to only be viewed as her kid, or receive special treatment due to how well regarded she is. So I use my dad's last name and generally keep who my mom is to myself. I also avoided coming to work for my mom. In my field and country, it's accepted that people are hired for a trial period, at the end of which either the employee or the employer can cut ties with no fines or compensation required. So anyways, I went to work at this one company. Again, I'll remind you, it's a very niche market with very few employment opportunities. I went in for my trial period and everyone seemed pretty happy with me. I put out some fires and one superior describes me as a workhorse because I'm first to the office and last out the door. It goes pretty well, except for one colleague on my team, and this dude is a huge jerk. I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I try to be on good terms with everyone. But this jerk will have none of it. The dude's incredibly rude, and he keeps being very confrontational. Like, if a colleague, not just me, was getting any sort of acknowledgement, the jerk would belittle them and their accomplishment. If somebody was saying they had a rough time with something, the jerk would pop in and he would say, "Oh yeah, I did that a while back. It was super easy." Whenever someone tried talking future plans with me, the jerk would go, "Oh yeah, we'll see about that." He also apparently said some unkind things about my appearance, but at least those things he had the decency to say behind my back. Like, this dude was incredibly mean, for apparently no reason except trying to make himself look better by making everyone else look worse. And the guy's meanness seemed to apply especially to women. He made a few comments how working in this field isn't for moms, and they should be raising kids or whatever. But management seemed pretty content on keeping him because apparently he was a good worker and they liked that he was ambitious. So fast forward to my trial period ending. I'm offered a permanent position, but I decide this is not the place for me, as I don't like being anyone's workhorse, and I have very little interest in sticking around in jerks' vicinity. I respectfully inform them that I won't be sticking around, and I go find work elsewhere. On my last day, I come to say goodbye. Management says they're sorry to see me go. Colleagues wish me well, and they say they're gonna miss me, and that's when Jerk says, "Ha! I told you that idiot wasn't gonna stick around. Good riddance. Maybe this field isn't for him either." The guy said that very loudly, but I leave anyway because I'm not very confrontational and I don't have to deal with him anymore anyway, so I just go. Some time goes by and I'm now employed elsewhere. I'm doing happy and doing well. I love my work and my colleagues, and I've been promoted. I don't really think about Jerk anymore, except apparently there was a relative influx of applicants from his company. Relative again because it's a niche market. Whatever. My boss knows I did a trial period over there, so when an applicant comes up, he asked me about my experience with them. There's very few people I disliked, so when asked, I usually give my honest opinion, which is usually very positive. But guess whose application we suddenly receive? It's the Jerk. My boss asks for my opinion, and I tell him, "Look, I have personal feelings about this person, and I can't be objective." My boss, knowing just how positive I usually am about basically everyone, asked me what's up, and I eventually tell him. I tell him everything, and the Jerk obviously doesn't get hired. I assume that's the end of that. A few days later, we have a family dinner, and my mom goes, "Wait, you had a trial period at that company, right? Do you know Jerk?" My mom knew there was a person I really didn't get along with at that company and all the crappy things they did. I tell her it was him. Obviously, she isn't gonna hire him either. So my company ends up hiring one of Jerk's company's former workers. We were on great terms, and this is how I discovered what happened there. I find out the Jerk got promoted, and that made a bunch of people quit. And this caused management to look into why strong applicants were leaving after their trial period was over. It turned out it was because of Jerk. Someone had a talk with him, and from what I gather, he was not receptive to criticism. He was then let go. That's when he applied to the company I work for and to my mom's. And from what I understand, he no longer works in our field as nobody would hire him, as our field has very few employers. But unfortunately, I have no idea what he does do. And this is why you always play nice and try not to ever burn bridges, especially being in a field where there isn't many employers and word gets around. Like, the man ended his own career by being a mega a-hole, and that's the karma he deserves. And here's the thing, even if OP didn't tell his boss what a jerk this guy was, he probably wouldn't have lasted long at the new company either. Maybe this field wasn't for him. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /PettyRevenge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's on our /entitled People episode, where a smug boss forces everyone to work for free and ends up destroying his career, because who wants to work for free? Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.